So if you're like me, you have a lot of DVDs, but mainly use streaming services. So a solution that I had found was to build my own Plex server. First, what is Plex? You can read what Plex says on the screen. It was quoted directly from their website, but in my own words, I like to say that Plex is basically just a service that allows you to access your own digital content from movies to music and so much more on many of the devices that you use day to day. Now that you know what Plex is, I must give a legality disclaimer. I am not responsible for any illegal activity that you do. I am also not promoting any illegal activity. Before using Plex, you need to do research and understand your local government stance on services like Plex. While some places allow for you to legally own a digital copy of your physical disc that you have purchased, there are limitations. So follow your government regulations accordingly. Alright, so I'm glad that that's over with. So how do you set up your own Plex server? Well, first I'm going to assume that you already have your own physical storage set up. This can be a computer or even a NAS. A NAS is a network attached storage. These can be as cheap as a few $100s to very expensive, meaning several $1,000s. The price depends on the brand of NAS that you go with and the number of drives it offers and some of the internal technology from its software. But the other part is the storage drives that you use. So if you're using solid state drives over spinning drives, then it's going to be a lot more expensive. Certain brands are more expensive. It also depends on the amount of space you need. 8 terabytes is a lot more expensive than 1 terabyte, so on and so forth. Chances are you will be using a computer like I am. If you haven't watched my videos on how to make your own home server, you should check out the link down below in my description and watch that full playlist, because I am actually using that computer as my Plex server. So a few notes about your storage device before you get started. Make sure that your storage device has a solid network connection, which means I would recommend a wired connection rather than a wireless connection. Make sure that it has a reliable power source. I even recommend some sort of battery backup or at least a surge protector for it. Make sure that you have enough storage space for your media plus an extra 20% free storage space. This is for additional media, but also once you start getting into only 1 or 2, even up to 5% free space, your hard drive starts running slower. So I recommend having at least 10 to 20% of free additional space. Also, have a way to back up your data. I personally use Veeam Backup to back up all of my media. It's always worked for me, so I continue to use it on this server. I would highly recommend at least one physical on-location backup. You can do a cloud backup, and it's great as a secondary, but unless you have a super fast internet connection with high upload and download speeds, it could really bring your home internet connection to a crawl. So it's not good for primary backups. Also, an offsite backup or a copy of your data that you keep offsite can always be a good idea. Next, you'll want to set up your Plex account. So you'll want to go to plex.tv, go to the top right corner and to sign up, and you'll want to sign in there and create your account. So this is what I see since I've already got my stuff set up. Typically, when you're first starting out, down here where it says more, it'll usually say like my media. If you just click on that, it'll take you through the steps of setting up your server basically. I'm actually going to go under account and get Plex apps, and this is close to what you'll see. So I have my actual server set up for Windows. And so you can change what you're using, whether it's Linux, Mac, Windows, you're using QNAP, any type of NAS. So you just choose your option. I have it set up for Windows 10. All you have to do is download, follow through the steps, and then for any apps and devices, you can also download actual apps for it. I've never used the download from the website. I've always just used the apps, whether you're going through the Play Store on an Android or if you're on an iOS device, go through the App Store. TVs have it, whether you're using Apple TV or Vizio TVs, any type of smart TV like Samsung, Vizio, LG. They've all got apps that you can use for Plex. So once you have all of that set up, you're going to see a home. You can start changing your pinned items. Like I've got music and movies. There's actual movies and TVs on Plex, music on Tidal, live TV. So things like that. Now you don't have full access to that, like everything, until you actually pay for it. What I'm doing is free, and so I'm showing you how to do everything that a free user can use rather than a paid user. So all of this so far is free. So when you are setting up your stuff here, I'm going to give you a little bit. You can go in when you're setting up movies, music, and all that. Select which one. You'll put a name for it. You'll then go in and add folders. So I've got it going to my M drive / movies, because I've also got M drive / music, M drive / TV shows as well. So I just need to select, since I'm doing movies, I need to select movies, TV shows for TV shows, music for music, and so on. So you would just go in here and browse the media folder. Now that's where you would select whether you're using a NAS or a local drive on your computer, which is what I did here. And then there's also advanced in here. There's different things you can add or remove. So then for me, it's save changes. I think it's just save for the first time setup. And again, you can do that with TV shows and movies as well. So I've got my server to automatically update every 2 hours. So new movies will automatically populate every 2 hours. Now I can come in here manually, scan for library files, but again, I've got mine to scan the whole server every 2 hours for new movies and new music and new TV shows. You can go into your account. You can edit everything in all of these settings. Remote access is usually the big one. Depending on, if you're wanting to use your Plex outside of your house versus inside of your house. If you just want to use it on your smart TVs in your house, you can disable remote access. But if you're wanting to use it, outside your house, you're going to need to open that up and access it. Then, your library, how I have mine scan library every 2 hours. That's how I got it to set up. I would suggest emptying trash automatically after every scan, so that way it doesn't hold on to any unnecessary files. But just go through your settings here and make sure everything is set up accordingly. So now that you've already got your account set up and Plex is ready to go, you need to get your media onto your server, computer, or NAS. To do this, you will need the following: an optical disk drive that can read and write CDs, DVDs, and even Blu-rays, software to rip DVDs and CDs and Blu-rays. I personally use Handbrake, as it was suggested to me by someone else who has a Plex server. If you have software that you want to use, by all means use it. If you want to use Handbrake, I suggest checking into this article here that goes into everything that you will need to know for Handbrake. The link is down below in the description. Be sure to check that out and follow it step by step, because if you miss a certain file that you're supposed to download, no DVD will rip. So definitely check those step by step. As mentioned earlier, you also need enough storage space on your drives. So now I'm going to show you how to rip your DVDs. First, obviously put the disc in the optical drive. I wait about 5 seconds before opening Handbrake. If I don't wait, sometimes Handbrake takes a little bit longer to load. So we're going to go ahead and open Handbrake here. And then go to the left. I'm going to go ahead and select the DVD. Sometimes the scanning process can take a moment, as little as 20 seconds to as long as about 20 minutes. Most of them, in my experience, take about a minute to 3 minutes. So once we get to this point here, I go through and I verify the title, which I always personally look for the longest title. And then I go over to the presets. I always change it to super high quality 1080p 30 surround. So, and then I don't mess with anything else. But I do go down here and I change the title, get it going. After adjusting any settings, I go to Start Encode. Before I actually start encoding, under the Save As part where I adjusted the name of the movie, you can go into Browse and choose where at you want to save it, but I actually went up to Tools, Preferences, Output Files, and then my default path. I automatically changed that to where I want all of my movies to go. So that way I never have to browse. All I have to do is change the name, change the quality, check the title, which check the title first, because if you change the title after changing the name, you have to rechange the name again. But anyways, that's what I do. Title, quality, and then the name of the movie, and then Start Encode. Down in the bottom right corner, there's a few things that you can do when Handbrake is done. I just have it quit Handbrake, so that way the next time I come back to do a DVD, Handbrake is not holding on to any old files or bogged down by anything of that nature. It just goes ahead, it quits, and then it restarts and runs as normal. And so now I'm going to go ahead and start encode. Also, just know that the way I'm doing this here doesn't allow for subtitles. If you want subtitles, you have to do a little more research about Handbrake, because like I said, I'm using Handbrake, but if you're using something else, it's all going to change and vary depending on the software and the version that you're using and the operating system. This here happens to be Windows. If you're using Windows, Linux, Mac OS, it's going to change. Your settings are going to change a little bit, so just double check all that on your own. Once your DVD is ripped, make sure that it's in the correct location for your Plex server. I always have, as you've seen, mine are supposed to go to the correct location automatically. I still have that file open just to double check, so when a new one pops in, it goes directly to the top. And so I can see the length of the movie, I can see the size of the movie, and the title of the movie all right there. So basically at this point, you've successfully created your Plex server. There's really nothing else that you have to do. There's a few things you can choose to do, like adjusting settings on your Plex server, allowing remote access, so on and so forth. Make sure that your settings are adjusted to how you want to use your Plex server, whether it's internally only in your house or whether you want to be able to take it on the go with your phone or tablet or whatever, your computer. But I do want to go over a few more things with you before you go, such as a few troubleshooting tips. If a DVD doesn't want to rip, select a different title on the DVD after rescanning it. So exit Handbrake or whatever software you're using, rescan the DVD and choose a different title. I kind of briefly mentioned the title selection already. Some titles just don't rip correctly, and that's why I suggest that. If you're still having issues, wipe the disc clean with a microfiber towel, just very softly. I've had a few DVDs that didn't want to work. I looked at the back, they looked kind of gross. I softly wiped the smudges away, and voila, it worked. If multiple DVDs are having issues, it's best to go ahead and restart the server, computer, whatever you're using. Just give it a reboot. If DVDs are having issues with glitching and skipping, I would suggest replacing the optical drive and re-ripping any of the DVDs that had that issue. And just know that some DVDs won't rip at all. I don't really have a good explanation for it. The only thing I can really think of is some DVDs, with the way they're made, the formatting and things of that nature, they just don't want to rip. They just keep failing. And as weird as it sounds, some DVDs, you may have to give them a rest and go back to. Oddly enough, I think it was 2 or 3 DVDs that were not working. I went through, scanned a handful more, I should say about 50 more, and then I went back to those couple of DVDs, and they worked just fine with no issues. So oddly enough, some just need a rest, I guess. If the speed of the rip seems to be taking longer than an hour, you might be able to increase your speed on the rip by doing some of the following. Now, depending on the computer, this may or may not work, so your setup will vary. A new optical disc drive. Older ones have issues ripping to higher quality and may not support the ripping of Blu-ray and CDs, so a new optical drive would be beneficial for more than one reason. A new graphics card. Not all graphics cards can be used for ripping DVD because some have specific purposes for like 3D graphics on CAD programs. A new processor could help, but be careful on this one as it may require a new motherboard as well. However, if you do not have a GPU that you can utilize with your ripping software, your processor will take the hit when ripping the DVD. So either get a new graphics card or consider getting a better processor, which again might require a newer motherboard. A new hard drive would be something that I would actually start with. Newer hard drives have better read and write times, so essentially they're faster, and so they could write your rip a little bit faster, or write your DVD a little bit faster. You could also lower the quality of the rip. As you saw, I went up to 1080p, super high quality, 30 frames per second surround sound. You can always drop it to like just a fast 1080p or fast 720p, or remove subtitles, things of that nature. You can just play with your quality to see where it gets you. Again, these are not a guaranteed fix, but they could help the speed a little bit. I average about 45 minutes per rip with a newer hard drive and just a processor, because my graphics card only can be used with 3D graphics on CAD programs. With a new graphics card or even a solid state drive, I could get my rips down to about 40 minutes instead of 45. But again, some of those change because the length of the movies. Obviously, if you've got a TV show at 20 minutes, it's going to go faster than The Green Mile, which is 3 hours and 8 minutes long. So, there's a lot of variance in there, but I average about 45 minutes per rip. You should now be able to set up your Plex server with all of your DVDs and even your Blu-rays. You should even be able to do music at this point. It's not much different, but a quick note for music and something to also consider for DVDs. Plex does not play all file formats. So verify that what you are ripping versus what Plex will play. The media formats that Plex supports can be found in the description below. There's a link there directly to their website. But as always, thank you for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe.